Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Melissa, and this channel is all about psychiatric drug withdrawal reactions and recovery. And it draws on my 7 years of experience in this community and the thousands of conversations I've had at this point, both formally as a coach and informally just within the community. And the purpose of this channel is to provide hope in what often feels like a hopeless situation, and just to talk about topics that get brought up over and over again in conversations with people, because I'm sure there's many people wondering about the same thing. And so that's what I aim to cover on this channel, is those patterns and those consistencies. And none of it is meant to constitute medical advice. It's just drawing on these experiences. So the video topic is, should we always try to make associations when we go into a wave or have a flare of symptoms? And someone had requested this video topic, and so I just want to talk about it in this video. So before I get into it, I want to mention that I am coaching again. So I offer 30-minute calls and 60-minute calls. And if you're interested in talking about any of the many layers of this experience, then I will put my direct booking link in the description. So should we always be trying to look for associations? I know this is a big thing because naturally, when something happens that scares us or that is out of the ordinary, we automatically want to look for a cause. I think it's just a natural process. We want to figure out what happened so that we can fix it. And so, especially when we get into this waves and windows pattern, so whether it's off the drug, whether you're trying to stabilize on the drug, this is something that comes up frequently. And I would say probably 80% of what I coach people through is this windows and waves pattern, because it can be, first of all, really scary. It can be very unpredictable. It can be very frustrating, demoralizing. Just when you feel like you might be in the clear, it just sort of repounces and shows its ugly face. And that's very hard for people. And so they can struggle with feeling like, how am I ever going to get out of this fear of the next wave happening, especially if you've been in a prolonged window or even your first window or any window at all. And you can kind of remain in this hypervigilant state just from worrying about when the next wave is going to hit. And so when it does hit, then we are looking for the reason why. And people wonder or ask my thoughts on this. Should we always try to make associations? And again, it's natural to do that, but I personally don't believe that there is always a trigger. I know there are people in this community that believe that there always has to be a trigger, but I don't necessarily believe that to be true. And it didn't seem like that was my own experience either. And so what can happen is, if you're always looking for, so say, because the symptoms can switch on and off so quickly, then as soon as the symptoms come back, a lot of times people look back to, what was the last thing I ate? What was the last thing I drank? What did I do today? What did I do yesterday? What was I thinking about? All different kinds of things that they're trying to associate with the increase in symptoms. And it can become a bit of a trap. My own personal view is, you want to look for potential consistency. So there might not be any, but I would say, like, if consistently I don't know, it could be anything. Say you do a certain level of working out, and that it's causing you to go into a wave every time. I would say that's a consistency. That's a pattern. Let's look at that. Does that necessarily mean that that's going to be that pattern forever? No. So when I say things like that, sometimes people will say, so I'm never going to be able to work out again. And so I say, or work out that way again. I always have to reduce it to walking or yoga or things that, for me personally, I loved doing high intensity workouts before this happened. And even before I understood withdrawal and what it meant or what it looked like in full, I was experiencing this. I was like, why can I suddenly not exercise without feeling really sick afterward, really fatigued? My face would swell up. I'd be nauseated and just could barely keep my eyes open, and my symptoms would increase. And now I realize that excessive stimulation was just too much for my body at that time. And I didn't really understand pacing. I didn't understand nurturing and stretching. I didn't understand, like, kind of meeting the nervous system where it's at. But consistently, this was a thing for me. And so if this is a thing for you that seems to happen over and over again, then I would say, okay, this is something that obviously has happened to me multiple times. I'm going to change the way that I do that, or I'm going to just not do it for a while, but then revisit it at another time. Maybe when you're feeling a little bit stronger, you're a little bit further on in the journey. Because again, people can get really stuck on, oh, are you saying that I'm never going to be able to have coffee ever again? I'm not saying that. It's more of reframing it like, I can't do that right now. That's not what my nervous system, it can't really support that. But again, I'll revisit this in the future if it's something that really adds to my quality of life, or I'll modify it for now until I can fully do it in the future, or whatever that might look like. But again, I think that you can get really stuck in this trap of every time a wave happens, looking at all these one-off things and not seeing any patterns, and then starting to avoid. So obvious things to avoid potentially could be, the wrong kind of medication. It depends. Everybody's situation is different when it comes to that. Or alcohol, or things like, I don't know, that are sort of known to be neurotoxic, or that seem fairly obvious that a person in withdrawal should be avoiding. But if it's something that you know is not actually or technically harmful, then I would say that's when you kind of have to reevaluate it. If it's not a pattern, consistent pattern for you, your brain is just associating it, and it's something that is not inherently like unhealthy or neurotoxic by nature, or sort of known to cause setbacks with many people in the community. And even that, I don't even necessarily like to say. So I always say, like, look more at your personal journey and your personal patterns. And if it's something that you know is not inherently unhealthy, and say you would enjoy in a window, then don't go avoiding that if it's a one-off thing. So say someone has gone into a wave and the last thing they ate was ice cream. If their brain ties it or associates it to that, and they start then avoiding ice cream, then I think it can become a problem, because you can end up avoiding so many things that maybe that wasn't the cause, but you're making that the cause. And so you're then avoiding that thing and taking that action to avoid it. It can drive your fear up. It can like lessen your quality of life and shrink it down. And I don't think that it's helpful. So that's the way that I reframe it when I talk to people is, if you were in a window, would you avoid this thing? So maybe if it was something like a steroid, you'd say yes. But if it's something like ice cream, or, I mean, it could be anything, walking outside in the heat and sweating a little bit too much, I would not normally avoid it in a window. So I'm not, and it's only a one-off thing, or what my brain is sort of latching onto. So I'm not going to avoid that now. I'm maybe going to modify it depending on what it is, but I'm not going to fully avoid it. And that's kind of the way that I encourage people to reframe it. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, I think it's better and easier and more effective to look at your own personal patterns and your personal history, rather than asking about every single thing in the community, because you can find someone who's reacted or perceives as having reacted to every single thing under the sun. And I don't want to minimize this either, because if someone has known sensitivities, or again, you have known patterns when it comes to, it could be even something like histamine, then that's very different, I think, than just having a tomato and then going into a wave and then avoiding tomatoes because it happened one time, because you want to make that association. I also think it's important to look at overall quality of life. So again, if you are making an association one time that it was the sugar that you ate, or maybe, I don't know, depending on where you're at in your journey, maybe consistently if you eat too many carbs, you have a flare. But sometimes food or a certain drink you have every day is one of the things that brings you joy. So one of the sort of traps that I see people get in is, that is the one thing, or food is the only thing that's giving me any quality of life right now. And so again, unless you have a known allergy, a known sensitivity, or you have a fairly severe consistent reaction to one thing, yes, you're probably going to want to avoid it, because how intense the symptoms come on so consistently is far worse than taking this, like how much this is contributing to your quality of life. But if it's mild, or if it's a one-off thing, again, if you're making the decision to avoid that from a position of strength or power, I know sugar doesn't doesn't help people's overall health, or avoiding sugar tends to contribute to people's overall health. That's very different than I'm terrified of eating this ice cream because it might trigger a wave because I thought it did one time. So I think that is the where you want to get to. And again, framing it from, is this a consistent pattern? And if it is, okay, maybe I just have to avoid it now, but it's not always going to be that way. Looking at it from a quality of life perspective, looking at it as, would I avoid this if I was in a window? And a lot of times people, when they go into windows, they're like, I don't even think about much in a window. So I eat the sugar and I'm completely fine. And I'm like, okay, if it's not inherently dangerous and, maybe every once in a while for your overall health or whatever, you just want to have sugar every once in a while, then I say continue doing it. And because you don't even know, even if it was something right before you went into the wave, it might not even be the cause, again, especially if it's not consistent. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. I know, again, this can really become a trap. And here's maybe TMI, but I wanted to share about sex because someone had said to me early on in my journey, don't do that. It is too stimulating. It's too bad for the nervous system. You should avoid it. And I remember just being terrified because I was like, that feels like the one thing that will pull me out of symptoms, even for a brief period of time. But if it's going to prolong my recovery or keep me stuck, then I should probably avoid it too. But then I remember thinking afterwards, I was like, you know what? It's such a natural human process. It's such a natural activity. It's not inherently dangerous. It is something that pulls me out of symptoms, even temporarily. And I'm just not going to buy into that I should be avoiding it for years on end because it, quote, stimulates the nervous system. Maybe that is the right decision for someone else. But for me, just framing it in that way, I was like, no, because if it's something, again, that contributes to your quality of life, you don't want to boil it down to where you're just sitting in a dark room and you have no quality of life. You're afraid of every food. You're afraid of going outside. You're afraid of the heat. You're afraid of people. And again, that can become a trap and a driver of the nervous system sensing danger in even more places than it already does now. So let me know your thoughts on this and how you kind of approach this, whether you automatically search or you've stopped searching. I think over time too, it becomes a little bit more predictable for you. Not always, but even if you can't tie it to something, I think just kind of realizing, okay, I'm in a wave, it sucks, but I always come out of it. It can often jolt you, like initially, because you're like, where did this come from? But I feel like over time you can lean into the process a little bit more because you're like, okay, this is a wave. I'm going to stop searching. I've stopped searching. I don't know where it came from. So I'm just going to go about living my life and sort of trust that all the other waves have ended. This one will end as well. I am kind of taking that neutral stance. I don't know the cause. I might never know the cause. And I think that that's a good perspective to put things in. And I want to say too that I had such a weird pattern in my first withdrawal where I had intense symptoms for 6 months and then they just disappeared overnight for 7 months and then they returned. Yes, I was doing things in between there that I should have avoided, like drinking alcohol, but I didn't understand it at the time. But then I still went into this like 7-month window and then the symptoms came back and I could not understand. I mean, for years, I tried to figure it out because when I went back into symptoms, they were so relentless again. And I'm like, how can this be happening? And like for years, I went through every journal I could find, every note I had ever written down about anything around that time period. I looked through my financial records and I was like, did I take something and forget? Or did I just could not figure it out. And now in hindsight, understanding more about what I do now, I think like at that time when my symptoms came back, I had significant stress in my life. So I was going through a total career change. I was moving houses. My relationship was pretty much over, but I didn't have the courage to actually end it. I had a ton of financial stress. I mean, there was a bunch of things that kind of all happened at once. And I mean, that's sort of the way I've rested on it in my mind, but I don't actually know what happened there. And maybe if I wouldn't have been drinking, I mean, that wouldn't have happened, but it wasn't directly correlated with I drank and then it came right after, like it seems to happen for other people. So I don't know. And I've kind of just settled it in my mind that I don't know. It's probably the stress, but I don't know. And I do see stress as being a pretty significant cause of people's waves now, but I didn't know that then. I didn't know a lot then. But anyway, just wanted to share that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.